Popular Agile Methods. Extreme Programming, XP. XP is one of the first Agile methodologies. Kent Beck, the American software engineer that created extreme programming, says, XP is a lightweight methodology for small to medium-sized teams developing software in the face of vague or rapidly changing requirements. Development is just like driving in XP. Imagine you have a windy road. You would need to react almost instantly, take turns, and protect yourself from any sudden obstacles. You need to focus on the road. XP is just the same in software development. XP is all about sufficiency. How would you code if there was no time constraint? You would have an eye for minute details, improve your code, and restructure it every time you see an opportunity. You'd like to have updates with your fellow coders and customers often. Some of the key practices within extreme programming are pair programming. This is a method where two people are working using one computer sitting side by side. They have two roles, the navigator and the observer. Pair programming, if done well, would mean fewer mistakes are made, and hence it would cost the business less. One partner learns from another, and then the roles reverse. New ideas are encouraged, and so better code is produced. Code review. This is a continuous process of improvement used in creating more efficient and clean code. One programmer gives another programmer feedback on their code. This usually results in better, well-documented code. Unit testing. This is the testing of each unit as the smallest testable part. It helps to identify a failure in any larger code produced. Integration testing. This is comprised of multiple software developers' code where individual modules are combined and tested as a group. Planning game. This is essentially a meeting that takes place at the beginning of an iteration. It consists of release planning, where the team decides on which features they'll work on during the iteration, and iteration planning. This involves the planning of tasks during the iteration. Courage. This comes into play when important decisions need to be made and are able to change the direction of the project. Respect. Let's look at some of the principles of extreme programming. Simplicity. The motto here is live for today without worrying too much about the future. When you have a task at hand, when you have something to do, look for the simplest thing that works. The emphasis here is on that works. We want to build something simple, but not something that does not really have any value. Feedback. Feedback is extremely important in XP, and it occurs at different levels. It's used to drive changes. For example, developers write test cases. That's immediate feedback. If your test cases fail, there's something wrong with the code, or there's something that you still have not developed. Developers also estimate new stories right away as soon as they get them from the customers, and that's immediate feedback to the customer. And finally, on a slightly longer time frame, customer, developers, and tester develop together a functional system test case to assess the overall system. Also in this case, that's a great way to provide feedback, and by the way, also to help communication, one of the core values of XP. Change. In extreme programming, change is the only constant. Change gives direction, gives feedback, and gives assurance that you're going right. The initial principle of Agile is to be customer-focused, and if the client needs a change is what they'll get. It also embraces one of the values of XP to have courage. The courage to let it go if it doesn't work, to change if need be. So how do we accomplish all of the above? What are the practices that help us get these principles in order? Feedback. Feedback is the crux of extreme programming. At every level, there's a feedback process involved. At the developer's level, there is local testing. Pair programming is a continuous feedback process. Every iteration opens up into another with the help of a feedback. Extreme programming also involves the whole team. If there's a crisis or an SOS situation, the whole team gets together and takes a crack at the problem. Continuous process. Extreme programming involves continuous integration by continuous testing, preferably every few hours or a day at the max. This is done to ensure no pileup of issues which may go out of hand when overlooked. Refactoring also forms a part of the continuous process, which roots from the need to change. Refactoring means to take a code whose design may be suboptimal because, for example, we evolved it. We didn't take into account some of the features that had to be looked into from the beginning. So for whatever reason, we take this piece of code and we restructure it in order to make it simple and maintainable. Developers are expected to refactor as soon as opportunities for improvements are found. For example, before adding some code, you might want to ask yourself if you can make a change to make the addition simpler. This practice also involves small releases, which would reaffirm continuous integration and testing. When the releases are incremental and small, change is easy and feedback is quick. Simple design. Keeping it simple is also keeping it out of problems. Extreme programming avoids big, complicated designs and opts for designs that are just enough to meet the set of requirements without any duplicate functionality and the fewest possible classes and methods. If a design is done this way, evolving and adapting the code becomes easier. On-site customer. This literally means that the customer is an actual member of the team. So he sits with the team and brings requirements to the team in the form of discussions. Testing. There's a lot of emphasis on testing in Agile development. Testing first, testing early. The basic principle is that testing is coded confidence. You write your test cases, and then you can run them anytime you want. And if they pass, they give you confidence that your code is behaving the way it's expected to behave. If they don't pass, they give you direction. Tests of two types are conducted. Unit tests. This tests every meaningful feature of code. The other test is the system test, also called acceptance test. This test involves the customer. It's broader and involves the whole program and not just a code.